This is Mrs. K showing you the way. 10.5 segment links and circles. There are basically three types that could happen. You could have two chords, and in that case you take one of the chords and you multiply each of those pieces together. So EA times EB. Then you take the other chord and you do the same thing and you just set them equal. So on this one, EC is this little piece times ED. That's if you intersect inside that circle. Two chords. If you have two secants, it's a little bit different. You take the outside portion, EA, and you multiply it by the entire segment. So you have to find the length of that whole segment. And then you just follow that same pattern on the other side. So outside, whole thing. And then you just solve it. Usually you're trying to solve for x. That is two secant segments. The third one is if you have a secant and a tangent. A secant and a tangent. See how this touches the circle at one point? So that's a tangent. So in that case, if you think about it, the outside portion is actually the same as the whole length. So what happens is you square that tangent piece, whatever that is, squared. And then on the other secant segment, it's the same pattern as above. So outside times whole length. So I've got one example of each to show you, and then you can try some on your assignment. Alright, so this is two chords. We're going to figure out what x is. So remember on that one, take each chord. The orange chord has a 9 and an x. So 9 times x equals, then you take the other chord, do the same thing. 3 times 6. And then you just solve that. So 9x equals 18. X equals 2. Okay, here is one with two secants. So on this one, you would take, remember the rule, outside times whole length. So 9 times, and then you have to add those two together, 9 plus 11. So if you want, you can just add those. If they're both numbers, just put 20. Equals the other secant, outside, 10 times, now here you can't add those because one of them's an x. So then you just put 10 plus x. So parenthesis, 10 plus x. And hopefully from algebra you remember how to solve that. Actually, I have a couple of options. You can just distribute the 10, or if you wanted, you could divide the 10 over and make this 18. And that would be quicker. So this would be 100 plus 10x. Your x is here, so subtract 100. 80 equals 10x. So x would be 8. X equals 8. That's if you have two secants. Okay, and then the third one was if you have a tangent and a secant. That's like this one. So remember on the tangent, the outside portion is also the whole thing. So that one you get to use twice. So x times x, which if you remember from algebra is x squared, equals. Then on the secant, all the secant segments, you do the same thing. Outside 7 times whole thing. 7 plus 8. Since they're both numbers, just add them together. 15. So then you have x squared equals 15 times 7 is 105. And then you're just going to square root the 105. So get your calculator out. It's 10 point something, but square root 105 is 10.2. We were putting plus and minus on it, but this time we don't need to because this segment right here, if you put negative in there, then you can't have a negative segment length. So for these, you're just going to put the positive answer, 10.2. That concludes the lesson on 10.5, segment lengths and circles.